Hello, everybody. We are here live with you on a Wednesday night. Thank you guys so much for joining in, for everyone who's already here with us. My name is Chris. This is Scott. We are your hosts for the Action Lab. Wanted to just make sure that, you made it through the week. We're halfway through. We made it to Wednesday, and we want to get you that second half. And we have a lot tonight to get you through, to think about. It's Thursday tomorrow. The day's almost done, but we're ending today, Wednesday, on a high note. Scotty, what do you got to say to that?
I mean, yeah, this is going to be, I feel really good about this show. as I think my voice just cracked a little bit there. So 13-year-old here, staying up late tonight, no big deal. But I feel really good about this show. The rundown has a lot of interesting stories. We're going to dive into some more draft stuff leading up to, we're just over a week away from the first round of the NFL draft that we're going to live stream and cover with all of you, hopefully. So times are good right now. The sporting world is fun for the most part, and we got a lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about. So before we get rolling here, we just want to throw a couple just pieces of information your way. One, make sure, since we are live streaming on all of our platforms, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, make sure you're hitting that follow button on all of our different social medias. We're multi-streaming here. We're getting people from all walks of life, all social media accounts. So make sure you're hitting those follow buttons, those like buttons, all the way across the board. Manning Fresh, Jen, Vic, Rachel liked this our last show. And so many more. So make sure that you guys jump in, have some fun with us, and it even means more if you just jump in and chat with us a little bit. We love to hear all of your sports takes, and make sure that you guys participate and have some fun with us, because then we can start talking and having a good time with all of you guys. But
keep in mind, if you guys don't chat, I just have to talk to Chris for the whole time. And that's difficult.
And then it's just a two-person party, and then we're just, we're having a great time either way. But it's always better when you guys get involved. So throw us your ideas, your different things that you have on your mind. Get them off your chest. This is your chance, everybody. This is your time. It's not our time. It's your time. We do this show for you guys because we love you guys so much, and we know that it definitely makes us feel good too. But another tidbit of information, Scotty, I can officially start growing my beard back. It has been officially 3 weeks.
Are we sure? I need to check the calendar. That seems too quick.
3 weeks. It is. It came fast. Came and went. So.
But you don't want to. You want to keep it clean shaven.
So for all of our viewers who are just joining us, we had a little bet going into March Madness that whoever's bracket, Scott or myself, whichever one was going to be the worst bracket of the two, ended up having to do something based on, facial hair, basically, is what we decided. If Scott lost, he would have had to grow his beard for 3 months, because that's how long it takes Scotty to build out that beard. Nice and strong, right?
I mean, I've never grown facial hair for a full month. I've got close to like a full month, really, really close. And I just look at myself and I'm like, nope, can't do it. So 3 months would have been, I'm really, really glad I won that bet. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. You would still, you would have still another 2 months and a week ahead of you growing that beard out. So, hey,
yep.
You dodged a bullet there. I lost the bracket with that last Final Four of the Baylor matchup there. So it came down to the wire, realistically. And I ended up having to shave my beard for 3 weeks, which now I can grow it back. Now you guys can see me as normal here soon. It's going to only take about a week to grow that out again, so I'm not too worried about it. But glad to be growing back. The wifey's glad that I'm growing it back now. She's happy with that. That new for her, I guess, transition. So hey, we're there. We made it. No more big beard shaves in my future anytime soon.
I'm glad to hear that your marriage has survived her seeing your full face.
Hanging on by a thread.
I was a little worried about that. I would have felt a little guilty, if it just collapsed due to her seeing your face and just being like, nope, I'm out.
By the way, this isn't, it actually, it's one of those bets that I don't think is maybe the worst bet that I'm trying to think of the worst bet that I've ever had to pay off. Now, if you guys in chat have ever had to make a bet that you've lost or won, tell us your best bets that you've had that you ended up having to be a part of, either good or bad. I would love to hear some of the bets that you guys have thrown out there over the history. I mean, everyone's got that one, right? Everyone's got that bet where they're just like, man, that was fantastic, or no, that really sucked. But throw it in the chat if you're here. I would love to see those. It's entertaining to check those out. Scotty, what's your worst or
I
best?
I was about to say I've only had good bets, so I don't even know how to relate to these bad bet stories you're discussing here.
I
I've
remember
never lost a bet.
one bet that you made with one of our friends where he had to wear the Broncos cheerleader uniform at a football game, right? I believe the same one that Robin Williams wore on Saturday Night Live, I believe.
Yeah, so one of my friends, Brady, we made a bet, and it sounds laughable now with where these two franchises are, but we made a bet. It was the last year that Alex Smith started. What year was that? Like 2017, maybe? That I bet that the Chiefs would win more games than the Denver Broncos. Sure enough, it wasn't overly close. The Chiefs took care of business that year for me. And the bet was that the loser had to basically we were going to go to the other team. So the winner, we were going to go watch the game the following year against those two teams in that team stadium. So that following year, he had to buy tickets for himself and I to go and watch the game in Kansas City. It actually ended up being a Monday Night Football game, KC Denver, which was a lot of fun to watch a few years ago. And the bet was that you have to also wear the other team's gear. So him losing, he was supposed to wear Chiefs gear. I gave him an out, and he was like, what if instead of Chiefs gear, because I can't do it as a huge Broncos fan, he said, what if I dress up as a Broncos cheerleader? I'm like, yep, no, that works. We can do that too.
He put that on himself.
So if you haven't ever seen the pictures of Robin Williams as a Broncos cheerleader, check that out. And he made this costume from scratch, my buddy, and he looked exactly like Robin Williams.
It was pretty spot on.
It was incredible. Like, honestly, we went to tailgate and every Chiefs fan just saw him and started laughing. It was like, we got to get a picture with you. So it was actually a lot of fun. Like, he was really cool about it. Like, the Chiefs fans were really cool. Like, they just wanted a picture with this guy who was wearing this, female cheerleader outfit in the Broncos colors. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. That was a good one.
Well, yeah.
And I got to go to KC and watch the Chiefs also win that Monday Night Football game in convincing fashion. So everything was great.
Again, we got to get you a bet that you're going to lose here soon. We'll find something. We'll get another bet on the books here soon, hopefully. But yeah, throw your best or worst bets in the chat. Love to see those. But let's dive in. We have a lot to get to tonight. Let's hit that news rundown. Every Wednesday, we cover all the top stories from across the country. A lot of times we like to spend Sundays diving into our local, just sports, Broncos, Rockies, Avalanche, Nuggets, because we are local here in Colorado, so we like to throw love to our local teams. But as far as the Wednesday show, we like to get a little bit bigger. Plus, hang around for the second half of the show. We have all of our draft analysis for everything that's going on with the NFL draft for our big special. We're prepping for everything that's going to be coming up on our show live when we live stream that first round. It's going to be incredible, but we want to make sure you know who's who. So we've already covered quarterbacks, wide receivers. What else have we covered, Scotty? We've covered corners, and what am I missing?
Corners and, oh my goodness, edge rushers.
Edge rushers. So tonight we are covering tight ends and safeties. So we always go one half on the offense, one half on the defense. So we're going to be making sure you know the top 5 of both of those positions so that you're a little bit more informed and educated on who's who and who you can look out for to potentially drop to your team for, a big-time playmaker, potentially, either on offense or defense. So we'll cover those here on the second half of the show. But let's dive into that news rundown. All right, here we go. Now, I want to kick off this show and kick off this first topic with this Super League, European Super League. I didn't think I would be starting out this week talking soccer. I didn't even know going into Monday. Now, I do like, by the way, Deb in chat, what do you think of Shaq Harrison on the Nuggets? Shaq Harrison, I don't know how much playing time he's going to get, by the way. I think we signed Austin Rivers to a 10-day contract, so we'll see. I don't think he's going to play a ton, really. We'll see if that works. The difference is we have a couple injuries at the point guard position that are going to be Monte Morris is having a hamstring injury. They don't know exact. He's going to come back soonish, but not anytime soon in the next, I would say week or so. So we need some depth there. So I think Shaq will get some run. Anytime you have a coach that's like Michael Malone, he's going to make sure random lineups get thrown in there, and I'm sure Shaq will get some time. But I like his athleticism. I like what he can potentially bring, but he just doesn't play enough for me to have like a super big opinion on him. But some of the highlights he's had in his short period of time, he's looked impressive. So, we'll see what that looks like here soon. But
yeah, I don't know. He played in 17 games for the Jazz this season, averaged 1 point and a half a rebound and half an assist in 3.3 minutes. So he's basically a guy that's injured, just protection for the fact that, obviously we lost Murray. Morris is not playing right now, and we'll see how long that hamstring injury keeps him out. So that's kind of protection, but I think Campazzo and Rivers are going to play a lot more minutes than Shaq Harrison.
Yeah. But I want to talk. So, like I said, going into Monday, no idea what was going on with this European Super League. Now, again, I watch Arsenal. Arsenal's probably one of my favorite teams just because of the ties to Kroenke and the Nuggets and the Avalanche. So, early on when he bought that stake in the team, I kind of ended up liking Arsenal a little bit more, so I followed them a little bit. I have a lot of friends who are into EuroLeague soccer when it comes to the EPL and everything. So when I saw this and all the news that it was making, I had no idea what was happening. And then I talked to some of my friends and just to try to get an idea of how big is this, and they're like, it's huge if this ends up going through. And what this is, if you haven't heard, it's kind of, even if you're not a big soccer fan, this is big news. But 12 teams decided that they wanted to break off from UEFA, from FIFA, from everything, and start their own league of the the good boys club, pretty much is what it ends up being. And they took the top 12 teams, 6 from the English Premier League, 3 from the Spanish league, the Liga. Then you got a couple from and then 3 from Italy. So, with that being said, these teams put together this lineup that is going to be more of like an American style kind of league that has like a playoff structure, like regular season structure, where the pros to this are the fact that you'll see a lot of the marquee matchups more often, right? You'll see the Arsenals playing the Barcelona's, which you don't see until the finals of the Euro League. Usually those teams don't necessarily mix it up during any kind of the regular stretch of the season. So that's kind of what a lot of these owners were looking for. Now, there was some little pieces of information that also went into this. You'll see some of these these fans that are really upset because what this would do in the grand scheme of things, and why the fans, even all of the fans, of the super fans of each of these teams, they have their own YouTube channels. Arsenal's got theirs, Liverpool's got theirs. This is bad for the fans in the sense that you're taking away the essence of what was built over such a long period of time in Europe for those leagues to be created within the local culture, the community, everything, and you're just taking those and just pretty much destroying it because you're taking these teams, these 12 teams, putting them on their own and leaving everyone else behind without even really giving them a chance to join in at any level until maybe later on down the line. There was some things with that as well. But to join this league, teams were offered, I think, $400 million to join this, just to join. Whereas I think they have a couple $100 million in that range if they win the Euro Cup, or the big championship at the end of the season. So for a money standpoint for these teams, there's a lot that is to be desired when it comes to looking at the dollar signs. And that's what I think a lot of the owners were really excited about here too. But keep in mind, yeah, there's when you have the backlash that you had with this, everybody hated this. Everybody. Now, I don't think that I talked to a single person who thought that this was a great idea outside of some of the owners of this team. And not that I talked to the owners of these teams, but This was just something that no one was on board for. Now, this week, Scotty, and over the course of the last 24, 48 hours, all of the English Premier League teams in this pulled out of this deal. They didn't want any part of it. There's actually only 3 teams left in this deal.
Yeah.
And that's, I believe, a couple.
Like Spain.
Yes, pretty much Spain. And with that, and I think I have a graphic here at some level where those are the final 3 teams, and they're associated with some pro wrestlers here. It's kind of funny, but right here we go. They're just teaming up. They're not giving up on this dream, but realistically, this just wasn't a great idea based off of how they put this together and how quickly it came. I know there's been talks about this, but no one really thought this was going to come to fruition until they just said, we're going to start this as soon as possible. And this was like Monday. So there's a lot of fallout from this. There is, the fan bases are calling for owners to just give up on, just leave the teams and not be a part of this anymore. You have the ownership of Liverpool come out and say, this was on me. I can't believe that, I would, go through with this knowing what it would do to the fans, this and that. So, man, this has been just a huge, huge story that I never thought I'd be covering here on the Action Lab.
Yeah, in essence, when you think, all right, we're taking the 12 top, soccer clubs, football clubs, whatever you want to call them, in, Europe and combining them into a league, it sounds like really exciting on paper, right? But it just, like the essence of, so I don't know if you watched, my favorite thing that I watched was actually James Corden of the Late Show, I think on CBS or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Super, obviously a comedian, funny guy. He went on like a 7-minute tangent on how devastating this was. Like talking about how, the essence of the EPL, the European, the English Premier League is these teams, all these, franchises, they're not even franchises. All these teams were built up 100 years plus ago, and, from their inner city roots, and the fans live and die with these teams, and it's just about community and basically just decide, all right, we're taking the 6 most wealthy teams or popular teams or whatever they are, and moving on and eliminating these other English Premier Leagues. I love how it's set up in the English Premier League where they have if you're at the bottom of the league one year, you move down a division, and the top from that division moves up to the next. Like, I think that's really cool. Like, we don't have anything like that here in America, and I think that's really cool. That makes sure that teams are trying their best to stay competitive because the money's in staying in that league, right? So I don't know if that's a reality ever in a sport here in America, but I think that idea is really cool. And Gordon just talked about like how devastating it was to hear it. So if you haven't checked that out, look up James Corden talking about the English the English Premier League and this Super League and how it affects where he's from and how devastated he is in that rant. I'm really, I'm not surprised it ended. Everyone thought like there's nothing going to be stopping it. I'm like, this bad publicity is going to stop them for sure. Like teams that were even the fans of the teams that were in this league weren't happy about it. They're like, no. Can you imagine this for people that don't get it? Like, imagine the 10 most popular franchises in the NFL or, wealthy franchises or whatever. Just decide one day like, hey, we're out. We're going to start our own league with just us 10, and you guys can figure out whatever you want after this. Like, that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
These owners were just being insanely selfish. Like, yes, they lost money last year during the pandemic, as a lot of people in the world did. But I think they're going to be okay. They're going to bounce back from this. Maybe some adjustments need to be made in how all this system works with, all the different leagues and the Champions League and things of that nature. But I'm really, really happy teams were, even if they didn't want to pull out, they were forced to essentially by their fans going absolutely insane over this. So I'm happy it's not working out. I think My biggest regret right now is I don't have an EPL team. I need
You need
to decide on an EPL team.
you got to get
I
one.
need someone to tell me. Like, I need to like figure. I've just never figured out like who it should be, and
choose wisely.
I need
Depending on
one.
who's watching, they have some opinions. By the way,
Yeah, yeah.
P Nix in the chat. Terrible idea. Did Kroenke say? I don't think Kroenke said anything to this point. I know there's a lot of the owners coming out saying that they were definitely making a poor choice when this happened, and they didn't really think through this. Love the relegation. Wish we had it here. Yeah, I think that's such an interesting standpoint. And a couple of things I want to touch on here. Mayday, by the way, welcome back to Mayday. Appreciate it. The Rockies are playing. Rockies are going down. Had a baseball game. Won the other won. The other coaches said we were playing one more big shit show. They wanted to win and score 2 more instead of okay. So nice. Won your baseball game. Good stuff. Mayday. Man U for the win. Man U. So by the way, Man U was there was a broadcast. You said Corden was had a great rant about this. There was a Man U broadcaster. He was an ex Man U player, and he's all Man U. He was literally on one of his broadcasts, just getting his opinion on this, saying it was a money grab, and he would disown the team that he played for, the team that he loved, and the team that he would die for. He would disown them if they did this, and how bad of a decision this was. He was like, we got to hold these clubs accountable, even if it's my own club. And it kind of gave me chills of how, man, this was, when you see guys like that passionate about this. Another thing that made this also a difficult decision for these clubs was the fact that UEFA and FIFA, they said there was going to be harsh penalties, one of which was going to be any player who was part of this Super League was not going to be allowed to play in either the World Cup or any major European tournament at all. So that was one of those things that really woke up some people when they put that in place. Now, here's the thing, though. UEFA and FIFA are not completely out of the blame here, because they obviously, anytime you have these organizations that oversee things, you have the NCAA here in the United States, you have UEFA, FIFA, you have the United States, or you have the Olympic Committee that oversees the Olympics. All of these organizations, whenever you have something that oversees leagues like that, there's always going to be some sort of money, manipulation, corruption. They're not free from blame in some of this, because there's a reason why these teams decided that they wanted to do this, because they wanted to make more money for, some of themselves when it came to, this league and how they could profit from these and how they can grow financially. But that was money that they weren't getting from those institutions, those organizations. So that's a whole nother thing. We're not going to dive too much into that, but there's always going to be something there. And you'll notice that, Scott, there are putting together some changes that are going to be happening here very, very soon with UEFA and some of the ways they run their league. I don't know if you've heard some of these changes that they're going to be implementing here soon.
I haven't heard anything on the specific level. I've heard that they're trying to make changes. All these owners were saying how the current system's built, like they're not going to be able to survive. I think that's a little dramatic. I think that's them reasoning why they decided to create this Super League a little bit. There's probably a better system to even out the finances and make sure every team's making money. But like, these owners right now do they care about the sport, or they just care about making money? Like, at this point, the guys who have bought up these super teams are just the guys with the most money, right? And just like, do they care? I don't know if they care about winning. That's the problem with, like, you're rewarded by being in the Super League. That was the biggest issue, is like, you're not rewarded for playing well or even winning the league. Like, you're rewarded for just being in the league. It doesn't even matter. You're going to get paid out a ton of money as a club just for being in the league.
Yep.
Which doesn't help the competitive nature of what everything is built on across the world in sports and certainly soccer or football or whatever you'd like to call it.
Yeah, so we're going to see how this ends up unfolding. Now, I don't know if there's going to be any other ramifications or anything else that comes along with this, but it's going to be interesting to see what the final, I think they're still working through a couple of details on, the different ways they're going to improve the product for these teams and for these leagues when it comes to UEFA and trying to make sure that they're changing some things up that kind of fit, because this was a big wake up call for them too, right? They ended up, seeing this come through. You know, what's kind of ironic is the fact that when this all happened, there was immediate. This is a whole nother topic, and I'll get on another rant here on this. But there's also racism issues in some of these soccer leagues, and some of the you hear about these things. And I saw a funny meme where talk about racism, and UEFA's like, yeah, just make sure you reel it in. But then all of a sudden the Super League pops up and they come down hard on it. They come down with an iron fist. So there was some like little things like that I thought were interesting, but it just kind of opened up the whole thing for me about the different cultures, right? The different cultures of EuroLeague soccer versus what we have in the United States. Sometimes, we don't really think too much about that. And the fandom and the history, and like some of these fans of these clubs have been fans for generations in their family, and they've grown these teams from before they were this big, and all of a sudden there's so much more history, and you forget that when you look at these teams. When you have like these NFL teams, NBA teams, Major League Baseball, it's a whole different ball game, and they take this like so much more personally than anything else. And so it was a wake up call of that deep love for a sports team that I feel like, man, it's refreshing to see that sometimes that gets lost in translation, especially for me. You just root for a team, they lose, all right, on the next, it's like, I don't know. It's kind of nice to see.
For sure.
Yeah, so going in, there are a lot of American owners that don't understand the history. Yeah, and I think that's Ameda. You hit the nail right on the head there. I mean, you have the Boston Red Sox organization owner that owns the Liverpool team. Stan Kroenke is pretty much the majority owner of the Arsenal team. So you have a lot of these people that are coming over. I mean, even LeBron James bought in on a team. Not that he's like a majority owner or anything, but he's bought in on some teams. You have the American influence coming in and trying to make that change, when really it's like the European fan base is like, no, we're good. We don't need you. We're fine. We'll take this, and you guys can just go, screw yourself. I don't need no American influence here. So yeah, it's interesting. So we'll see how this ends up panning out. You still have those teams that haven't pulled out yet. You can't have a league with 3 teams. So it's only inevitable that they're going to be pulling out as well. And maybe they'll make another run at this down the line, or they'll try to figure out another way to do this. But this was a really, really bad move overall. And I think people are going to think twice when you have, decisions like this coming down the pipeline on, all right, you better do your homework, and you better make sure you're not pissing off an entire country, practically entire continent. Yep. So
owners saw dollar signs and nothing else, and didn't think about anything else, and it caused a lot of backlash. So I'm glad everyone put up that backlash, and I'm glad it didn't work out. So
yeah. All right, next topic on the docket here tonight, PGA Players Pool. So this is kind of similar in a sense. So, going back to what we were talking about with the American side of things, right? We were like, oh, us Americans, we like things a certain way. Well, we're doing that kind of with golf now. Now this report came out. You shot this note over to me. This was one of those new things that I didn't really hear about until you kind of brought it to my attention. But golfers are going to be making money to have the best golfers on the course, whether they win, whether they lose, how bad they lose, it doesn't matter. They're getting paid because it's all about the revenue. It's all about who's on TV and who can draw those eyeballs. So, Scotty, tell us a little bit about what is going on with the PGA.
Yeah, this is a really interesting story, and I feel it's a little different than what we just. I mean, it lines up with what we just talked about, where you're rewarding people regardless of their success on the course at this point, or pitch if you're talking about soccer. It doesn't matter how well, like you said, how well they play, but these are guys that maybe it's a lifetime deal. Like, in movies, Tom Cruise has made, a ton of movies. Let's say Mission Impossible 1 through 5, he did really well on. They're going to pay him handsomely before Mission Impossible 6, and maybe he's garbage in Mission Impossible 6. There might already been a 6. I don't know. But to me, this one makes a little more sense. So the basic idea is there's a $40 million allotment that PGA Tour has put out there for the top 10 players based on how much they move the needle. So how popular they are. So there's a bunch of different, it's basically, a bunch of different things they put into a system. It's analytical. It's not an opinion based. It's not like there's a panel that's deciding who the most popular people are. It's based off of like Google searches or Nielsen brand exposure. A lot of different measurements that'll go involve and decide who these top 10 players are. And then of this $40 million, like the top player is going to get 8 million of that. So ironically, right now, every year, the top player in this is going to be easy. It's going to be Tiger Woods. It's Tiger Woods. He's not going to play a tournament this year, and he's going to make $8 million because he's just the most popular golfer on the planet. Like, so he's going to be number one, and he's going to make $8 million without even showing up at a tournament. And people will be like, well, that is an extreme scenario. That's unfortunate. Most of these golfers obviously are playing a lot of golf and in tournaments, and your Brooks Koepka, your Justin Thomas, your DJ Johnson, like DeChambeau. All these guys are gonna make a certain amount of money off this. The problem with like the PGA Tour for these guys is they drive revenue, right? They drive the TV revenue. They drive the attendance at the, buying tickets to go watch these tournaments. And if they don't make the cut, they make $0 on that tournament. And then the other big issue and why this really happened is I'm going to miss out on who it was. What is it? Like, I'm going to say something wrong. Some other country, like Saudi Arabia or something like that. I don't think
it was a middle. Yeah, it was one of those like Dubai.
Middle East country.
Yeah, it was one of those like oil-rich countries, right?
Has been trying recently to start a new, golf league essentially, and pull all the top golfers in the world over to this league. None of these golfers had committed to this, but part of why the PGA felt like they needed to do this is to prevent these golfers from simply leaving and going and taking away from the PGA Tour. They defended themselves a little bit here and reacted when maybe these golfers weren't going to leave anyway, but I don't know. This one doesn't actually, I think it might bother a lot of people out there. This one doesn't bother me. This one actually makes sense to me.
I was going to say, I don't hate this, right? Now, this is one of those things, by the way, Mayday, it's all about the Benjamins. It is all about the Benjamins a lot of the time. I mean, that's what makes this go round. By the way, scaring you here, Scotty. He's trying to
trigger me.
He's trying to trigger me. Ryan Howard coming out of retirement to play for the Phillies in Colorado. Just kidding. So
if he is, it would be great news because at this point, Ryan Howard's got to be probably, I would assume, 300 pounds.
Wasn't he doing the Subway commercials too?
Yeah, but he's getting like 3 foot longs.
Oh, there
it's
you go.
It's no longer healthy when you have 3.
But going back to this story here, I really do think like, hey, if you can go make some money playing golf and get paid the big bucks, and if it takes you going to another country to go play in another league, if it's me, if I'm doing this, like, why not, right? You get to go and you get to make your money. You've earned it as a player to get to the point where you are in your career. Take advantage of some of those situations, right? Those are the things that really move the needle when it comes to, hey, if I can play golf in the, Saudi Arabia or Dubai or somewhere else, if someone's going to offer me to play against the top, second of all, you get the top competition there. So, all the eyeballs are going to shift. I think the PGA is terrified here that they're going to be losing a lot of their athletes if they don't say something or do something about this. And they're going to lose ratings that they can't afford to lose, especially with Tiger not being available. You have some of these other players that haven't really exactly been performing to the – I mean, when's the last time Rory McIlroy or some of these other guys have really been competitive in some of these tournaments? I don't know. I haven't really watched golf, but I haven't seen them in many leaderboards recently. I could be wrong. I haven't seen, Fowler or McIlroy win any tournaments recently, right?
McIlroy has certainly struggled this year, and Fowler has struggled for a long time where he didn't even qualify for the Masters. So, yeah, no. So, he's been out of the loop a little.
So, yeah, I think, I don't know. I just think if you're able to make some money and do some things with that, I don't hate it. I love all the emotes, by the way. Thank you, Mayday, for throwing all the fun emotes out there. By the way, if you don't know, if you're in Twitch, there's a little emote button where you could emote anything you want. There's a little library of emotes. Throw those out there. We'd love to see those. But what do you think? Any other thoughts on this?
My biggest reason for not hating this is, and what makes it different than the Super League, is basically these guys aren't leaving the tour. They're still playing in the tournaments. They're not abandoning all these other, golfers on tour and taking that revenue money with them. So they're still playing in those tournaments. The revenue for the tournament is not changing. It's based off of specific things, and that's not going to change. So it's not affecting any other golfer on tour. It's just those top 10 guys get a little bonus at the end of the day, which I'm okay with. It's just a little more money thrown out from the PGA Tour to reward those guys that are driving, viewership and fandom. So I'm fine with it.
It's up to, honestly, it's up to the players, right? If they want to put a little bit more on their schedule and make a little bit extra money, it's like picking up a part-time job on the side of your full-time job just to make a little ends meet, right? Except for this, it's more than a part-time job because you're making some big bank. So,
and it also, like you said, it encourages those top 10 guys even to make sure they're playing in a lot of tournaments, so they're getting that, mention on Google or search on Google or whatever the requirements are that I don't fully understand. But it encourages the top golfers or most popular golfers in the world to play in more tournaments. So nothing wrong with that. Well, that's what we all want to see.
Think about this, though. For an average golfer fan like me, I'm below average golf fan because I don't really watch as much as I should. So I would say I'm a below average golf fan. For a below average golf fan, if you told me I could watch a tournament with the top 12 or 15 players and nobody else play in a tournament, and I know every single person's name and I know every single person is a solid player, and I don't have to worry about, and it does take away some of like the younger players that maybe can throw their name in the hat and win a tournament, whatever. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna watch that tournament. That's interesting to me to see the 15 best players in the world in one single tournament by themselves to see how it plays out. I would love to see that. Must see TV for me. And that's golf. So it'll be interesting to see how that ends up evolving. We'll see what that looks like, but interesting story for sure. Right after the Super League thing, a lot of stuff going on with this stuff. Like just these little side leagues all of a sudden start developing in different sports. Like what is happening? But the next story here on our list here, go ahead.
I'm going to let you take this one. I'm going to let you take this one initially. I'm going to be right back.
Yeah, take a sec.
1 minute.
take a minute. By the way, if you're here and you are not following, make sure you hit that follow button on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook, wherever you're watching. We love that you're here, and we love that you guys are participating. So, as Mayday said in the last episode of our show, hit that follow button if you're here. Love to see familiar faces. The next story in our news rundown here on a Wednesday is the Gonzaga Bulldogs end up getting the #1 recruit in the country. Chet Holmgren decided this week that he wanted to be a Gonzaga Bulldog. Now, this was kind of a surprise in a sense that, you don't really see #1 recruits go into Gonzaga every day. That's not something that always happens. it wasn't a surprise in the sense that he was a teammate with Jalen Suggs in AAU basketball. Jalen Suggs, if you don't know, is the number one player for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. He ends up, Mayday, thank you, hitting that follow button. By the way, Mayday, 30 degrees, snowing during and after the baseball game today. Didn't sign up to have Colorado weather. Didn't sign up for winter baseball. Yeah, spring baseball. That's what. Hey, welcome to Colorado, man. Welcome to Colorado.
Hold on. On that note, though, for his Phillies this weekend, it's gonna be nice weather.
It's gonna be fantastic.
I believe
this
Friday's
weekend.
gonna be the coolest, and Friday's gonna be 55, so not crazy. But Saturday 67, Sunday 75. Like, no excuses for your Phillies this weekend when they get swept, Mayday. All right.
But going back to what I was saying, while you were gone, Scotty, I was saying that it was kind of a surprise, but kind of not a surprise that Chet Holmgren ended up signing with the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Now, they were favorites to sign, but number one recruits don't exactly go to Gonzaga right off the bat. So that was the surprise aspect. The non-surprise
never.
Yeah.
Never.
The non-surprise aspect is the fact that he was teammates with Jalen Suggs, who is going to the NBA draft. As of this past week, he's already declared, so he's going to be picked in probably the top 5 if I'm projecting that out. But with that being said, they were teammates through AAU basketball. Obviously, Chet Holmgren was using Jalen for a lot of these chats offline, trying to make sure if this was going to be a right fit. Obviously, Jalen Suggs sold him on it more so than anything else, I would think, because he was a big influence. He even said that talking to someone that he trusted, playing with Mark Few, was something that Jalen Suggs really loved, and he really liked the fact that he could do this. Now, this is huge for a team that just came off a championship appearance this past season, ended up losing and taking a big hit because a lot of their players, you really get deflated when you have a big team like that, and then you get a Jalen Suggs that ends up moving on, and you get Jay Ajayi who ends up moving on as well. He declared for the draft as well. So how do you reload, right? What's better than reloading with the number one prospect in the country? Now, previously, the Gonzaga Bulldogs ended up getting the number 3 point guard as well this past season. So this has been a big offseason for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Now, what are your thoughts, Scott, on this? And then where do you think this puts them going into next season? Now, a lot of the rankings have them number 1 in the polls early on. These are very, very early polls, keep in mind. But Chet Holmgren, by the way, dominant year for his high school. 20.8 points, 12.6 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 4.7 blocks while shooting 80% from the field. 80. With Holmgren going 18 points, 13 rebounds, and 7 assists in 89 in his Class AAA championship game in AAU. So he's a stud. He's tall and skinny, by the way. He's like lanky. He reminds me a lot of like the Bull from like the Nuggets, kind of.
He makes Devontae Smith look like he's just bulky as hell. Like he's just ripped, because this guy. Listen, and I've watched a little tape on him, but there's only some, like, they show highlights, whatever. Every player, when you watch tape, the highlight reel, they look good. This guy is like, you see the pictures we're showing right here. Like, he needs to come to my house. I will feed him well. I'm doing just fine with my feedings. Probably a little too much. He could probably eat some of mine. That'd be nice. But no, he's the number 1 player in the country. Zags, I think Jalen Suggs was the first ever top 10 recruit the Zags had ever signed. And now with the success that he had this year, they come back and sign 2 top 10 recruits with Salas and now Chet Holmgren. So I think Holmgren's going to be a guy that's going to be, I think he'll contribute more on the defensive end than the offensive end, like as a presence in the middle, even if you get beat, like with his length and lanky and shot blocking ability and rebounding ability. Like, I think that's where he's really going to make a difference from him. Offensively, we'll see if he's able to. I think he'll contribute. He's not going to be bad, but I think his strength is going to be defense. In the 1 year, I assume he will play Gonzaga. I don't know. Have we heard if Drew Timmy's coming back. Has he made any announcement? I don't.
No
So
announcement.
my brother, who's in this chat, is texting me. I think yesterday, or the day before. I can't remember now. Basically, being like, "Is Gonzaga going to be better next year than last season?" And I'm like, I don't know. Let's let him play a game first. Let's slow down a little bit. This guy needs to eat. Like, we have a new In-N-Out out in Colorado now. Maybe come here
It's
and
brand new.
just eat all day, every day, some In-N-Out burgers to add some weight to that frame, because man, he's the skinny guy, but obviously he's the number one recruit in the country. Dallas is a point guard that'll replace Suggs. Probably not going to be this. You can't expect a Suggs replacement to be on an equal, especially with a freshman. Like, Suggs was just different, right? Like, but Salas should be a nice replacement. If Timmy comes back, they're going to be a really, really good team. Obviously, they lost, at least 3 of their starting 5. And I don't know. Have you heard, like, honestly, in the chat, Pnex or you, Chris? I haven't heard on Timmy anything.
No,
like, has Timmy said anything?
He hasn't said anything, and in my opinion, I think it's in his best interest to come back as a sophomore. This past season, I just don't see him translating to the NBA, and I think he would be better suited in college basketball, where he can just get into his junior year, dominate again, because he's proven he can dominate against even some of the more talented bigs in the league. Even if they're bigger than him, he can be crafty. One thing that I love about this is the fact that Mark Few has gotten the best out of his 4 and 5 position, his power forward and his centers. He's gotten really good production over the last few years from those positions. Guards have always kind of come and gone, and he's had some decent guards and everything, but they really, really do well when you look at Rui Hachimura. You look at Kyle Wilcher from back in the day. You have Sabonis. All those big names from some those 4 and 5 positions, those forward positions, they've really gotten really good value out of. So that's why I'm excited about this. That's why if Drew Timme comes back with this recruit right here, man, I think that's really promising for me early on without seeing a game. But Chet does have to, translate into that system now and try to figure out if he can be a big-time baller in that. So in the chat, too, Zag's going to be really good again, Pnex. This transition year for the Zags, just like Nova last year, hate to say it. Sounds like Timme will probably stay. So, yeah, we're getting a little bit of, I don't know.
Different viewpoints. I don't think this is a transition year for the Zags. I mean, they're still the leading bet to win the national, like you said, the national championship next year. So there's certainly, like, worst case scenario, if Chet Holmgren and Hunter Salas aren't all they're hyped up to be, they're still a top 10 team. Like, they're still going to be really, really good. We'll figure out. I randomly watched a highlight, which wasn't meant to be a highlight, of Chet Holmgren last night when I was watching. The Kansas is after this guard, Ty Washington, who's down to like 6 teams and he's announcing soon, and down to like the who's who, like Kansas, Oregon, Kentucky, Baylor, like all these teams. So I think it comes down to Kansas or Kentucky, but we'll see. Anyway, but I was watching the clips on him, and Chet like blocked one of his shots and like ran him into the wall, which fortunately Chet's so skinny it didn't hurt too bad. But that's what made me think like his defensive presence alone is going to be probably the best. He's going to be the best defensive interior player Gonzaga's ever had, even as a freshman. Like, the length that he has, like, you don't even have to be. And offensively, like, he has game. Like, he can shoot. I mean, he's not the number 1 player in the country because he can only block shots, right? Like, he can shoot from the outside. He's, probably, I don't know, offensively, like a very, very poor man's Dirk Nowitzki, maybe. He has some handles to him. He's got some handles to him. He's not terribly quick, but he's got long strides, so that helps. I don't know. Gonzaga is going to be really, really good next year. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, they haven't had this exposure to all these top freshman recruits that only hang around for a year. It's really, really rare that they have only, these one and dones. So eventually I think that wears on coaches a little bit. So I think it's exhausting as a coach to invest so much in a guy for 1 year and then to see him go. So I think that tires people out eventually. But for now, Gonzaga is the front runner next year. Are they better than this year? You certainly can't say that right now.
Not quite.
You can't say it.
I wouldn't go that far.
Chemistry plays a long part in that too. So and I forget who their other big that was like their first big off the bench last year. I didn't see a ton of him, but when I watched him in the tournament, he didn't flash a lot to me. He was just kind of like a role player to me. So we'll see. But that backcourt, if Salas and Nemhard are good, and then you have Holmgren and Timmy in the front court, like that's 4 really, really good players.
So ESPN top 100 power forward Caden Perry's also entering the fold next season, while ESPN top 100 forward Ben Gregg graduated high school early and enrolled in the second half of the past season. Rounding out the group, Fabno Zhang. By the way, he's a number 33 ranked prospect in the 2022 class by ESPN. Reclassified into 2021 before returning to China to finish his high school career. Zhang is expected to enroll in Gonzaga as well. Those international players are going to go bye-bye once our number 1 international recruiting coach goes to Arizona here very soon. So that's going to go take a hit for sure. But there's a lot to like. There's P Nix loves Fabno Zhang. Throw it in the chat. Let's go. Throw some emotes, throw some love in for Fabno Zhang. I have no idea who that is.
I was like, this is the first time I've heard of this person existing. But that's my brother, and he checks in. He follows it a lot. So if he's excited, this guy might be something to look at.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. But let's wrap that up. Let's go into our next topic here, an MLB surprise starts. Do we have the Phillies as a surprise start? I don't know. Maybe not. We did we did in the first week, and then maybe they kind of fell off a little bit. But let's talk about some surprises in the MLB here. And if I'm taking a look at the standings now in the Major League Baseball standings, let's start with the American League. Number 1, Boston Red Sox, 12-6. Kansas City Royals in the Central, 9-7. Oakland Athletics, 12-7. So that's the American League. In the National League, you have the East. This is a shock. My second favorite team, New York Mets, 7-5, leading the East over the Phillies, 9-9. You have the Central Division, Milwaukee Brewers leading the Central over the Cincinnati Reds, which Cincinnati Reds have started out pretty hot. Kind of cooled off a little bit, but they're still towards the top of the standings. And then in the West, no surprise here, you have the Dodgers. But San Francisco is actually, they weren't necessarily picked to be above the Padres at this point. Padres and Dodgers are the cream of the crop in this division. However, San Francisco's coming out with an 11-7 record to be followed in, the first place position with the Dodgers, 14-4, best team in baseball. So, with that being said, what are your thoughts on some of the surprises, either good or even some of the surprises that may not be living up to expectations on this list?
Yeah. Let's start in the AL East. There's a team at the top that's a surprise and a team at the bottom that's a big surprise. So the Red Sox, when you hear the Red Sox are leading the AL East, a lot of casual fans might be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, they're the Boston Red Sox. No, I mean, the Boston Red Sox were terrible last year in the shortened season. Haven't really been competitive since they won the World Series a few years back. So, but they've been scorched earth. They have 2 guys, JD Martinez and Xander Bogaerts, are both just going off for them. They've scored 100 runs, which is the most in baseball to this point on offense. So their pitching's been fine, not elite, but good enough when you have the best offense so far in baseball. Let me check these stats real quick. Like, JD Martinez has batting .375 with 6 home runs, 20 RBIs already. And Xander Bogaerts is batting .393, 7 doubles, a home run. Like, these guys are just tearing it up and scoring a lot of runs. So it's always fun for the most part, outside of Boston fans being a little obnoxious at times, when the Red Sox are good. At the bottom of that, you have the New York Yankees. The New York Yankees coming in with, of course, high expectations, as they always do, and a big payroll, have not lived up to it so far. They're 6-11. Just haven't been able to find a groove at all. You know, LeMahieu, who was just a revelation for him the last couple of years, is only batting 277. He's been fine. Stanton hasn't done anything. He said he has 3 home runs, but batting, I think 158 on the year. Aaron Judge has hit 4 home runs at 268. He's been fine, but overall they're just not getting it done. Their pitching hasn't really performed up to standards, and their starting lineup, like outside of Garrett Cole, their starting lineup's pretty much a disaster. Like Corey Kluber, they signed and hasn't been the Corey Kluber of old, although he hasn't been that a little bit for a few years, but he hasn't started off well. So outside of Garrett Cole, like they're coming in with right now below average pitchers, and that's their biggest issue is their starting pitching just hasn't been there, and can't count on them at this point to contribute. So those are big surprises. Love my AL team, my Royals on top in the Central right now.
Why did I not know the Royals are your team in the AL?
Why did you not know that? Why wouldn't they be?
Have you always liked the Royals?
I mean, I'm not I'm not like diehard on the Royals. Like I'm a Rockies through and through. But if I pick an AL team, of course it's going to be the Royals. I was into it when they won the World Series, lost a World Series a few years back. Super into that. And like not crazy into it, not anywhere near like my fandom of the Chiefs by any means or anything like that, but was happy for the Royals and the fans of there. So AL West, Seattle's playing well right now. Oakland's just crazy. Oakland started out 0-6. And now they're 12-7. They're on an 11-game winning streak, which is just wild. They won an extras to get today against the Twins, 13-12. Like they're just on a roll right now, so they're not a huge surprise. In the NL is a little more chalk. Like the Mets are winning at 7-5, which it's early. Like they haven't played as many games as other teams. We'll see what happens there. The Reds are fun at 9-8. Loving the Cardinals at 8-10 because that's where Nolan went, and I just want them to not succeed. So
yes,
really enjoying the Cardinals in their last 10 being 3-7. Mayday in the chat talking all this trash. Your Phillies are first of all 4-6 in their last 10, and they're 1-5 on the road, and they're going to come into Colorado this weekend. Colorado 6-6 at home. The Rockies are so they're 6-12, but they're -3 in run differential on the year. And that's with playing 7 of their 18 games against the best team in baseball in the Dodgers. So they're playing their starting pitching's been playing really well. They're playing pretty decent baseball. The Phillies are 9-9 with a -6 run differential. So the run differential is actually worse than the Rockies. Like I said, 1-5 on the road. They played 12 games already at home if you're the Phillies. So I actually expect the Rockies to take 2 or 3 this weekend. Sorry, Mayday. He's talking about Harper hitting a home run. Like your best player is a guy that you picked up in free agency, and then the team he left won a World Series without him. So there's that.
Yeah, and another one on this list too. Seattle Mariners are right now another one on this list that I would say 11-7 right now. Now they lost today, but they're doing some things that no one really thought they would be doing at this point. Now you don't need to be reminded that they're not going to necessarily win the division. It's fair to say they're doing this with a bit of smoke and mirrors, but they've been outscored this season, and their lineup they haven't really been necessarily dominating teams, but they've been winning games, which is strange. But they're in the position that they are, second place, that no one ever thought they would be. So as far as that goes, add some clutch hitting to some timely bullpen work, and the Mariners are kind of hanging around their division, which is kind of nice for them to actually have some success there. I don't expect them to stay there, but it's an early surprise that they're kind of where they're at right now. I wouldn't have ever expected them to be where they're at. So good for them. but we'll see how these are very early on, by the way. You mentioned the Boston Red Sox. JD Martinez is just launching the ball again. Remember when he went to the Boston Red Sox and you're like, man, they got JD Martinez, and then all of a sudden you didn't really hear from him. He was kind of up and down or whatever. Now he's back into that form, and so he's doing some great things for the Boston Red Sox. Cincinnati Reds, they started out fast and furious, scoring runs left and right. Reds are second in the National League in runs and are slugging .470 as a team, which means they're essentially hitting like, insane. So that's great. But yeah, we'll see if they can continue carrying on those numbers moving forward. So yeah, some interesting stories here. Now, again, the Rockies 6-12. You mentioned our hometown Rockies. I don't think they're going to actually. If you were to put some money on this, I don't know. I would say that they don't finish last in the division. Would I be wrong in betting that they don't finish last in the division?
No, I certainly think their starting pitching, unless they get injured and it all goes to hell, will keep them in a lot of games. Like, their starting pitching's above average. Like, it's a pretty solid starting pitching lineup. They just haven't been consistent with the bats, and their bullpen's not great. So, no, I think they should certainly. They have a way better starting rotation than Arizona. So, if nothing else, obviously the Giants have started off hot. I knew coming in the Dodgers and Padres were going to be really, really good teams. So maybe they'll finish behind those three, but I think they could certainly beat out the Diamondbacks.
Yeah. Really early on in the season, we have a lot to see, so we'll keep tabs on this. We'll maybe, touch on these a little bit more in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe even, push it to the All-Star break, see where we're at the All-Star break. Who knows? We'll do like a little recap of where everything is kind of panning out halfway through the season. But let's move on to our next topic here, and that is Steph Curry. Steph Curry has kind of creeped his way in me being a Jokic guy in an MVP race. Like, how could you even just entertain anyone else outside of you had LeBron and Embiid early on. You had, going into the season, you had Luka going into the MVP race, but all of a sudden, Curry is doing some things that I haven't seen ever, and not a lot of people have seen really ever. He is doing things in the last week and a half over these course of these games that he's the best shooter to ever play the game, and it's insane what he's been doing. So Steph Curry is setting the basketball world on fire. Scored 49 points in a thrilling win over the 76ers the other day. He just torched his brother, by the way. Those pick and rolls and those screens to isolate Embiid on coming out and guarding Steph was not working all game long. It just wasn't working. He has now scored more than 30 points in 11 straight games. He's eclipsed 40 points 5 times during that stretch and is making an interesting case for himself for that MVP, kind of caliber. Now that they're back in the playoff race, they're in that play-in game kind of range, depending on how the last games of the season end up playing out. His performance brought his MVP odds from 10,000 to 2,000 on DraftKings Sportsbooks. So he's been absolutely just climbing the ladder here. Now, there's some weird. I'm sure you have some stats, Scott. I have some stats too. Steph Curry from deep over his last 11 games. Off of 0 dribbles, just getting the ball and just shooting, 28 for 56, 50%. Off of 1 dribble, 10 for 19, 53%. Off of 2 dribbles, 2 for 9, 22%. 3 to 6 dribbles, 10 for 27, 37%. And 7 or more dribbles, he's 69%, 22 for 32. I mean, he is absolutely crushing right now. The best 3 from the last 10 games. I mean, he's had some crazy threes. I don't even know if I can pick out the best one because he's just throwing up shots and he's just making everything. Now, he's being more aggressive. He's mentioned that, he's like the only guy on his team really that can do anything for the most part. But man, what, like, you appreciate greatness. LeBron, Jordan, the greats of the league. You always love in the NBA greatness, and this is greatness. Whoever you are, wherever you are, watch Steph Curry and just enjoy what you're watching, because there's nothing like it. There's nothing that's ever been like it. There's nothing. I don't know if there's any player that could ever be like it. He is absolutely phenomenal.
I've always loved Steph since watching him at Davidson make that run in the tourney. He actually ended up playing Kansas in the Elite Eight that year, that when 2008, when Kansas won the national championship, and Kansas won in the Elite Eight by I think it was a 2-point game where it wasn't even Curry that got the ball at the end, because they basically put all 5 guys on Curry and let another guy hoist a last second shot. But I've always loved Curry. I've appreciated his greatness. Like, this is the greatest shooter. I don't think anyone can question that he's not the greatest shooter to ever play the game. Like, I don't think there's any doubt there. And he's transformed the game. Like, you look from when he entered the game to where it is now, like, so many of these guys are just trying to model their game, and they can't be Steph, but they're trying to model their game off Steph. Like, if I can just be like, I'll just shoot threes all day, I'll do this and that. Like, Steph has worked on his athleticism, I'll give him that, but he's not a crazy athlete. He's just the greatest shooter to ever play. And this is my favorite stat of this run. So Steph's historic run recently, this is the greatest shooter having the greatest stretch of his career. He was averaging like 40 points during this stretch. So recently, Steph had, as of his last game before tonight, he had in this last week, he had 4 games where he made 10 or more threes. 4 games where he made 10 or more threes. So for his career, that makes it 21. But that doesn't even matter. The second most in NBA history is his teammate, not been playing the last couple of years, Klay Thompson. He has 5 games with 10 or more threes in his career, and he's number 2. And Steph in the last week has had 4. Like, that's how crazy this run has been. No one else has had more than 3 games with 10 made threes in NBA history. So if we're talking all time, Klay Thompson could be 1. Steph this past week would be number 2 all time in NBA threes, 10 plus threes in a game. Like, that's wild. That's insane to think about. We watched him play the Nuggets during this stretch, and single-handedly just that late third to fourth quarter, it got ugly, and then at the end of the fourth, it got real ugly when Jamal tore his ACL, but he was on fire. Like, it's fun to watch right now. They're going to make, because you have the playing games with the 7 through 10. I think they're sitting right now at 9 in the West, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to be in. At worst, they're going to be 10. So we're going to see if Steph can just take over on his own. It's unfortunate that he's on his own. Like, I'd like to see some more talent around him, but this run and that stat alone is just absolutely insane to think about. That in a week, he has achieved more than any other basketball player outside of Klay Thompson in their whole career as far as 10 plus threes in the game. Like, insane.
72 threes in his last 10 games. 72.
Yep.
Over that span, that's the most threes any NBA player than any NBA player in history has ever made over a 10-game span. Now, you know what's terrifying is that he's making a run, and he's doing it with Draymond Green and a bunch of rookies and third-string players that wouldn't make a roster on some other teams potentially. He's doing this literally on his own, which that's why I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for him to be in the MVP candidate, because he's willing this team putting this team on his back, literally. And Steve Kerr, his coach, was saying that he's never seen anything like it. Steve Kerr I'll remind you, he played with Jordan, and he said personally that he's never seen a shooter like Steph Curry in the history of this game.
Curry's a way better shooter.
Yeah, and it's not even close. So,
No.
I mean, wow. I mean, enjoy what you're watching right now, NBA people. Like, you're not when Curry retires and this is all over, you might not see another guy like this. He is absolutely insane. So take it all in, enjoy it. When you watch his games, even if it's against your own team, he torched the Nuggets. But it was fun to watch in a weird way. It was like, hey, I got to see Steph Curry. You're gonna always look back and like, I saw Steph Curry, just like I saw Michael Jordan. I saw, LeBron James. I saw Steph Curry put 52 on the Nuggets. Like, yeah, I was there. I didn't like it, but I was there, and it's just greatness. So
we're all witnesses now.
We're all witnesses. But that's going to wrap up our news rundown. Thank you guys so much for being a part of that. We still have another little bit to get through here, and we have a little bit of show left here. We have another half hour, actually plus. We might even go a little overtime to talk a little bit of this NFL draft, kind of get you all in tune with what's going on. So let's transition. By the way, before we transition, make sure if you're here that you're hitting that follow button. If you're not already, make sure you're either on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. Make sure you chime in. We've already had P. Nix, Mayday. We've had Deb pop in, dropping in some of their thoughts. So we love to see all of those. We like to see those familiar faces. So keep hitting those in the chat, and we will make sure to touch on all of your insights at any point. So hit that follow button so you know when we go in live. But let's move on to our rankings for NFL draft. Now we are starting this with safeties, Scotty. Now, top 5 safeties in this NFL draft. If you're a defense and you're looking to shore up your secondary, here's what you need to know about these guys. Starting at number 5, Jamar Johnson. Jamar Johnson from Indiana. Now, Indiana, you don't really see them competing in a lot of big-time bowl games very often. Indiana's they're a basketball school, right? They don't really have a lot of playmakers come out of college. But wait, you have Jamar Johnson. What do we got with him?
This guy's kind of an all-around guy. Like, you look at him, and he's a little smaller, a little skinnier than you'd like, although, I don't know, he looks pretty good right there. He's pretty solid against the run. Obviously, Indiana was actually really good at football this year, so surprising there. But here's a guy that is, a perfect safety for where the NFL is trending right now. He's legitimate cover skills. He's not like a crazy physical run defender guy, but he's more of a free safety guy with high-end coverage ability, and really can help in the passing game, which is more important than anything when you're looking at safety coverage. Like, helping out in the run game's fine, but you really want a guy that can cover and range across the field. To me, he reminds me of like a Nasir Adderley. So not everyone will know who that is. He was drafted, I think, 2 seasons ago, either late first or second, by the Chargers. Safety out of a small school. Playmaker, can make plays on the ball. Can really, turn the ball over on the field. Like, this guy's a talented guy coming out of the school that you wouldn't think is a big time school, but a team that was super competitive and won a lot of games this year. So he was the leader on the defense of that team, and I like him a lot.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a guy that you wouldn't normally expect to, from a school like Indiana, but I've seen him as high as number 3 in this position on some big boards for the safety position. So, he has high-end coverage plays, very special in those regards. You won't find a safety with a better ball production, per snap in the class. 406 career coverage snaps. He picked off 7 passes and broke up 6 others. He's a little bit more of a liability when it comes to being in the box and trying to be a tackler when it comes to putting pressure on either the running game or the quarterback or whatever. But from that standpoint, I think he missed 13 of his 49 attempts when it comes to tackling there. But I think he has a really, really high ceiling. I think he could do some big things there. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this guy. He's going to be a really solid player for whoever gets him. Next on our list, Javon Holland. Javon Holland out of Oregon. Now, Oregon hasn't exactly been, the Oregon that has historically over the last, 10 years been the same Oregon team, right? They've kind of fallen off a little bit, but that doesn't mean they don't have playmakers, and Javon Holland is one of those.
I would disagree with that first notion, but that's a whole different topic. Javon Holland is a player that you're basically relying on. He's a smart player. He has instincts and versatility. He's really good at he's always just around the ball. Like, he's one of those guys, like, you can't figure out why he's all around the ball, but he always is. Not his biggest weakness is his athleticism isn't elite. He's not an elite athlete, but playing in the slot or playing deep in free safety coverage could fit a team really, really well. He can sit in zone coverage for sure and playing like a cover 2 defense and sit there and be really, really suited for that because of his, smarts and instincts. He's better fitted to play in a zone coverage defense than maybe a man-to-man where the athleticism gets taken advantage of. But really, really smart player, really, really successful player at Oregon, and the right fit is key for him. Like, I don't think a team that, like I said, that's playing a lot of man coverage is going to want him, but a team that likes to play zone or cover 2 or cover 3, like where he can read a quarterback, read the defense, where the ball's going, and sit in coverages, like, he's going to be an elite player in that situation.
Yeah. No, I think he's definitely one of the better safeties in this draft. Now, going into some of what he can bring, he was starting safety as a true freshman in 2018 before switching over to the slot in 2019 and then opting out of the past season. He excelled in coverage both roles, recording 89.6% coverage, 89.6 coverage grade as a freshman and an 85.3 grade as a sophomore from Pro Football Focus. 20 combined picks and pass breakups over that span. So, he's definitely going to be a productive safety for you if you are looking to fill a gap. And where do you have an idea of where you can see him fitting in with a certain team?
I honestly don't. I like these guys right here are second, third round guys. I actually don't know. I could see maybe these top 3 go first round. I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if only one of these safeties goes in the top round. And we have a safety who actually played linebacker in college, so most people wouldn't even rank him as a safety. So if you don't list that guy as a safety, it's possible that we go through the first round and not a single inherent safety, although I think our first safety on the board here is going to be forced due to his size to play safety in the NFL. But they might list him as a linebacker, and that would look like no safety gets picked in the first round. Although these next few could. It's a bit of a wild card. They're going to be late picks if they do. They're borderline. Javon Holland and Jamar Johnson are probably more like late second, early third round picks, in my opinion. So it's hard to project where they'll head in that situation.
Yeah, and I mean, if Holland was a little bit bigger, I think, some people would say size-wise, he would be one of the top safeties in this draft. He's tremendous in the coverage safety. Added value, he's excellent in special teams. He's a willing run defender, when it comes to using his speed to come downhill and make some tackles. So he's not the biggest of safeties, but he doesn't hesitate to make some of those physical plays. So we'll see if that's going to be able to take him a little bit further on and move him up in some of these boards?
I didn't mention he's like a Micah Hyde to me. If people...
that would be your comparison here.
Yep, player comp there.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think his instincts, his quality route recognition, good vision, sees the quarterback. I mean, I think he has a lot of the intangibles that you want to see in a safety. So look out for him to be one of the better safeties coming out of this draft. Next on our list, safety Richie Grant. What do you got for Richie?
Yeah, actually, ironically, a lot of the same traits as Javon Holland. I think he's a little bit of a superior athlete, but he's a rangy, instinctive safety guy who will either play your deep middle or play in the slot, just like we just talked about with Javon. This guy was a ball hawk. Like, he had 10 interceptions at UCF. He had 5 forced fumbles, which for safety is just a really, really big number in your career. So he has just a knack for taking the ball away. He's a playmaker in that regard. His biggest issue is he's a bit of a gambler. So sometimes he gambles and misses, and he takes himself out of plays, and there's blown coverage assignments that lead to big plays. So he'll have to get reined in that regard, but just a really, really versatile guy, a crazy good athlete. I like, some boards have him as the top safety, and it's close for me, certainly with the number 2 guy here. Like, they're very, very closely ranked for me. It could have gone either way. This guy can play free safety for a team and really shore up that position. To me, he reminds me of like a Minka Fitzpatrick. So really, really solid player. Same style there. And a fit here would be like, if a team was going to roll the dice in the late first, I could see like Baltimore. Baltimore likes those aggressive, gambling, secondary players that are going to make mistakes but also make big plays. And they like to blitz, so they like guys that are going to, see where the ball's going and force their way that way and create turnovers. So Richie Grant would make a lot of sense for Baltimore if any team's targeting him at that late first round.
Yeah, Grant is one of the most experienced safeties in the draft class, by the way. Played 2,658 career snaps with the Knights, and very versatile. So he's quite easily one of the best safeties in the run support as well, which is why he came up with a 90% Pro Football Focus grade when it came to this past season in that regard. So I think there's a lot to like about him. Played well in 2020, showing, zone coverage, contributing the run defense, obviously. Multiple teams were impressed with Grant's Senior Bowl and said he helped himself, in that game. So they feel he's a sleeper prospect that could be a steal in the draft. Like, he could be one of those top picks that no one's really keeping an eye on. He's kind of flying under the radar, but he can really, really make a big impact. So I think he's one of those guys that you should definitely, if you're looking to fill his position, keep your eye on, because he could be huge for your secondary and the defense that what you're putting together. So next on our list, number 2, Trayvon Moehrig. Moehrig?
Sounds good to me.
This is so much easier than some of the names from last stream. That's for sure.
Yep.
What do you got on the number 2, Trayvon?
Yeah, my simple reason for taking him over Grant is he's a little taller. He's 6'2", adds a little height. Otherwise, I'm going to repeat again, like, he's a similar type player. He's a free safety type. He's not a strong safety type, just like we talked about with these last 2. Can play safety at the next level without, hip movement is fluid, covers the entire back end, and he's a ball hawk. In fact, it looks like at times he literally on purpose gives room to the player he's covering, so the quarterbacks dare to throw it, and then he just breaks on it and picks the ball off, whether that's on deep routes or closing really, really fast on the underneath routes, and he can do it all. So as a cover corner, he's elite. He's sometimes is a little too aggressive. His biggest weakness is being a little too aggressive on some of his deep routes and angles on those deep routes. Not expecting the quarterback to put it in the position that they end up putting in, which puts his team in a bad role. And he needs to figure that out, especially when he goes against, NFL caliber quarterbacks, which are far beyond the typical college QB. So his athletic abilities off the charts, ball skills, and size are his three best traits. He reminds me of another recent draft pick from, I believe, 2 years ago from Cincinnati, Jesse Bates, who's taken in the second round and has played really, really well on the back end for Cincinnati and been one of the leaders on that defense. So if he can live up to Jesse Bates, that's going to be, whether he's late first or early to mid second, that's going to be a really, really solid pick for a team.
Yeah, some teams have more graded in the second round of the NFL draft, but could go as early as the back half of the first round. So, he's a better fit as a strong safety from what I've kind of looked at through various, different lists. And a lot of these lists have him as the number one safety in this draft. So, his size, 6'2", 208. I've seen a couple, the 2 or 3 lists. I've seen him as low as 3, 4, somewhere in that range. But he has some of the best ball production you'll see from a safety. He's led all college football safeties and pass breakups in each of the past 2 seasons. So, he has ideal size and physicality for the position, which is what you're looking for. You can coach up some of the other little things that might pop up here and there, but overall, he is a really, really good prospect here. On the big board for Pro Football Focus, they have him ranked 16th. So that's kind of where he's slotted at, but we'll see who we got at the number 1 spot here next. And that's Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Koramoah, Notre Dame. So what do you got here? I thought we would just escape some of those hard names, but no, we had to throw one in. I spoke too soon.
This guy's very, very different, in my opinion, than the other guys we talked about. And I mentioned a lot of the people list him as a linebacker, which is what he played at Notre Dame. But this is a guy that is 215 pounds right now. Like, you can't play linebacker in the NFL at 215. Like, he would have to put on close to 25 pounds to be big enough to play linebacker at the NFL level. And that's why I think he's a safety. And that's why he reminds me a little bit of a Jamal Adams. So he's like a poor man's Jamal Adams. He also reminds me somewhat of Isaiah Simmons, who was taken at the top of the first round last year, but more so a Jamal Adams, who he makes plays behind the line of scrimmage. So he's more of a box safety. He's more of a guy that can help you against the run, can be physical against those tight ends and guard them in the slot. Maybe not cover those quick slot receivers. That's not really what he's going to be able to do. But he's also going to be like a guy you can send on a blitz, and he's going to get the job done really, really well on the outside. Like, he's going to make a lot of plays behind the backfield. His biggest contribution is going to be tackles for loss and sacks. And that's just the type of player he is. So he's an elite athlete, better athlete than any guy we just listed right here. So I think he's going to be a safety. Most people right now are listing him as a linebacker. I just don't think that's realistic. But maybe in a dime package, it doesn't matter, where on a third and long, he's playing the same position regardless of whether he's a safety or a linebacker. So he's not a guy that just, stacks and sheds on the running plays, but he's an elite player at making big plays behind the line of scrimmage. He did it a lot at Notre Dame, and he'll do it again in the NFL. So this is a guy that I'd be very, very surprised if he doesn't get taken in the first round, even though the position is kind of uncertain. That's how good of an athlete he is.
Yeah, and I think that's what is kind of surprising if you're watching this and you're just like, wait a minute, I've seen him more on linebacker draft boards than anything else. The fact that he's versatile and instinctive, his size, 221-pound linebacker, that the coverage that he can throw in there is rare for the position. So, you can definitely slot him in a couple different areas. it kind of depends on where, who drafts him and where you think you can put him. He generated the second highest slot coverage grade of any player in the country last season. So he's definitely one of those guys that you definitely want to take a look at and see what he can do for you on defense when it comes to whether he slots at the linebacker position and you're taking him for that role, which, again, as you mentioned, the size is kind of in between where you want him to be and where he should be. But if you can slot him in, look out. I think he can be a really effective player there as well. So that's going to wrap up our safeties. Let's dive in real quick here to our next position, and that is tight end rankings. And we're going to start out our rankings here at number 5 with Hunter Long. So Hunter Long coming in. What do you think about Hunter and what he can bring to a team? Now, keep in mind, tight ends have been really popular in the league over the last couple years. You see, your Kansas City Chiefs with Travis Kelce. You have a lot of other teams. The Patriots have historically gone really heavy with tight ends and been able to make those really big playmakers in the offensive game. Now, what does Hunter Long bring to a team that would draft him here at the tight end position at number 5 overall on our list here?
Yeah, here's a guy, 6'5", 253. He actually right now is better as a pass catcher than a run blocker. Not a guy that he has the body and ability and athleticism to prove himself. He just hasn't figured out how to fully be a blocker on the interior of the line. So he's more of a guy that you expect to, play in situations where you're trying to get him the ball. He's really, really smooth off the line of scrimmage. Made a lot of plays for Boston College this past year. And he's a threat up the seam against linebackers, no doubt, and can run a variety of NFL routes. So he has a lot in that situation. He's just not a great blocker. His hips aren't that loose, so he's not going to be able to just – his routes, while they're clean, they're just kind of like – it's not like he has like a Kelce hips where he can just beat a guy running that route easily. His hand placement on blocking is pretty wild, and his technique is really, really bad at this point. So he's basically a pass catcher at this point, and not a guy who you'd rely on to block. And I don't know. I really, really like the top 4 guys on this list. I think once you enter this range with Hunter Long, I don't love him that much. He doesn't excite me that much. But in the grand scheme of things, he did fall at number 5.
He didn't really have meaningful playing time until his redshirt sophomore season. And in year 1, he was already among one of the more productive tight ends in the country. Faster than your average 250-pounder, it showed. The way he turned screens and flat routes into big gains. So I think that he's going to be able to, be that pass catcher for a team that ends up needing a tight end who needs to make big plays. He followed most of this up with a more, classic tight end route tree performance this season. Saw him go 682 yards, highlighted by 11 contested catches. That's another aspect of his game. He can go up and just grab catches against other people. Excellent at winning contested catches. He uses his build to wall off defenders. Very skilled body control awareness. Put himself in good positions to make those catches. As far as that goes, I think he has a lot to bring to the table. He has issues a little bit separating from coverage, I think. There's been some knocks on him there, which the pro game will be a little bit more tough for that because, you have a lot faster players that you need to break away from. So he's not also not sudden or explosive with his route running to make those separation plays to get open. But again, he has room for improvement from the run blocking side of things, but he could develop into a good blocker. That's where you can get into a good scheme of the coaching staff trying to teach you up on that, and hopefully they can do a good job there to kind of round out his game. But that's kind of why we have him here at number 5. Number 4, Brevin Jordan out of Miami. We had a lot of Miami boys on our lists here over the course of the last couple shows. But coming from the tight end spot here, Brevin Jordan is coming in at number 4 on our list.
Yeah, really, really solid contributor at Miami. Bigger guy, like 6'3", 245, pretty solid there. Could add a little weight, and think he will as he moves into the NFL. But he moves like a wide receiver. He's pretty similar to the guy we just talked about in the sense that like he's far more advanced as a pass catcher than he is as a run blocker. What I've seen him compared to a little bit, which makes a lot of sense with me, is in San Francisco, Kyle Juszczyk. It's really hard to say. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. He kind of runs in the behind the line of scrimmage, like at a fullback spot as a tight end, more of like an H-back, like kind of just either a lead blocker or get out in pass coverage, or pass receptions and pass patterns. He scored a touchdown receiving in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs 2 years ago. So nothing wrong with being a Kyle Juszczyk. Jordan can be moved all over. He's willing to compete as a blocker. He just has to figure out technique and how to do it. And he's not like super, super huge where he can just dominate with his physical traits in that sense. I think he'd be a really, really interesting fit depending on where he goes. Like he's more of a niche than any of these other guys. The other guy I've seen him actually compared to, which is more of a traditional tight end, a guy who just retired this week, is Jordan Reed. So other guys think he's more of a Jordan Reed, that not your run blocking guy ever, but an elite pass catching tight end. This is what this guy could potentially offer. Could see him going as early as the second, maybe third round at the latest.
I mean, he played well for Miami in 2020, producing some big plays. Some of the team sources think Jordan can be potentially a late second round, third round pick in this year's draft. So, he's kind of in that range. As a receiver, he's a good route runner overall. Quickness to separate. Kind of works his way through the secondary and is able to use his athleticism and speed to open up for his quarterback as well. So I think he has a great talent base there. After the catch, Jordan has a compact build, so he can kind of allows him to run through tackles a little bit easier than some of the other guys that might be on this tight end list. He runs the ball aggressively and will pick up yards after the contact, which is kind of that athleticism we've been talking about. As a blocker, he has a little bit room for improvement there. He could get a little bit better. He's not the worst, but he's not the best. Should add strength as he can, struggle to sustain some of those blocks over the course of a game, especially in the running game. So I don't think he'll ever be a big-time blocker, but he should be able to improve enough to contribute some on the ground game to help protect the quarterback as well. So I think he can bring a lot to the table. Still, nothing crazy here along with our number 5 slot, but I think he'll have to prove to defenses that he's going to be a legit inline threat over the course of early on in his career. So we'll see where he can do with that, but I think he definitely has some talent, and I think he can definitely make a big impact on a team depending on where he goes. Number 3, Tommy Tremble, Notre Dame.
Yeah, Tommy is one of my biggest man crushes in all of the draft.
Oh no, here we go.
Tommy at 3 to me, Tommy's really 2 for me. I'll be honest. I love Tommy Tremble, and you look at his stats from last year. He played all year. He caught 19 balls for 218 yards, 0 touchdowns. So you look at it and you're like, why do you love this guy? His athletic traits are off the charts. So first of all, he's an incredibly physical player. He will bury you in the run game. He's the best run blocking tight end in all of this draft. He can also stay in the line and pass protect. He's the best blocker of any of these tight ends in all the draft. And then beyond that, he is an elite athlete. He ran at his pro day, and obviously these pro days are up for debate and interpretation, but he ran a 4.37. I'll say that again. As a tight end at almost 250 pounds, he ran a 4.37. Like, that's insane. He's going to be really, really filthy wherever he goes. To me, he reminds me of George Kittle. He reminds me of George Kittle a lot. So George Kittle didn't put up a lot of stats in college, and also wasn't a high pick in the draft. I don't remember where San Francisco took him, but it was no earlier than the 4th round, and I think it was later than that. So I think Tommy, I would love the Chiefs to take Tommy Tremble in the 3rd round. I'd be over the moon about that. I think this is a guy that, as a pass catcher, has the athletic traits to do it. Wasn't asked to do it a ton at Notre Dame for whatever reason. His biggest weakness is, like, he's never run routes. Like, you have no idea as a route runner what he can be. His route tree at Notre Dame was just basically running 5 yards and turning around. So we'll see his agility and whether he can turn quickly on that. But I love Tommy Tremble. I'm obsessed with Tommy Tremble. I will be looking to see where he goes, because I think whoever gets him gets a really, really, really solid athlete at the tight end position.
I mean, I don't know how I could follow that up. I mean, he's your man crush, and you're gushing over Mr. Tommy Tremble. I don't know.
I am.
Now, you love him more than I do. I don't. That doesn't mean I don't love him. I think he's going to be one of the top guys here. I've seen him, ranked in the top 2-3 tight ends here on a couple different boards. Some have him a little lower. Some, it's just kind of all over the place where he's at. But while the stats may not tell it, he's a talented tight end, and he was kind of just like under the radar for a lot of teams. He's smart in pass protection, recognizing blitzes from the second level as well, absorbing contact before getting into deeper into some plays. He's light on his feet. He has speed. There's a lot to love about what he's got here. After the catch, he uses his athleticism to kind of get through guys and get those yards after catch. Physicality and leverage. He can create a small windows that, help with his routes and everything else. He just has some of the things that you don't really see in the box score that really translate over into the NFL game that I think he's going to have a big impact as well. Here in the highest run blocking grade of any tight end in the country last season, at his best blocking, he's at his best blocking on the move, and could even be seen as a fullback potentially if he really wanted to shift to another position. But I don't think he would be very good suited in a fullback position. He's definitely going to be better in that tight end position. But overall, Pro Football Focus has him on the big board rank as 96 and number 3 overall tight end on their list. But
way too low.
We obviously have him a little higher based off of what we think he can be. So Scott said it all. He has a lot of potential, and I think we have a player who can really just look out. You might get the steal of the draft here with Tommy Tremble.
Yes, sir.
Number 2, Pat Freiermuth. From Penn State at number 2 in our tight end rankings.
Yeah, this is a guy that started off the year really, really hot. Unfortunately, got an injury that kept him out in the latter part of this season, but was the number 1 option in the passing game for Penn State when he was in at the early part of this year. So another guy is a pass catcher, really, really solid, big, athletic body. When you look at him, he looks like what you would exactly draw up as a tight end should look like. He's really agile, actually, with the ball in his hands, more so than even creating separation. He's better with the ball in the hands as far as, have the intelligence to stop and start and whatnot to make defenders miss. Then he doesn't have elite wiggle to create separation and kind of those hips we've talked about, like those Travis Kelce hips. Travis Kelce has the greatest hips at tight end I've ever seen.
You love
and that's
his
what
hips.
gets him open. I will talk about Kelce's hips for days.
I mean, we should
For
get
days. I've never seen anything like it.
I've never heard you talk about a man's hips so much. And
Kelce's hips are the single most important trait that any tight end in the game has.
You know, one day I'm going to buy you a picture of Travis Kelce's hips so you could put behind you on your wall there, and you can showcase.
Can it be like a shuffling hit, like it goes back and forth kind of thing, like a shimmy,
like a GIF, where that like a one of those digital pictures where you can see the hips shifting,
where he's shaking a defender with ease. Yeah, no, I'd love that.
Those hips don't lie, Shakira style.
This guy doesn't have those hips, but he's like a really, really solid presence as a pass catcher. His floor is probably higher than Trimble. His ceiling's way lower than, in my opinion, than Trimble's. To me, the player comp is more like an Austin Hooper, who's a really, really solid player, but nothing you're like looking at and like, oh my gosh, this guy is someone we have to have on the team. He's a starting. This guy's going to be a starting tight end in the league for a while. If he is he ever an elite tight end in the league? I don't think so, but a solid starter.
He's a 3-year starter at tight end for the Nittany Lions, racking up 1,185 yards and 16 touchdowns. That's pretty good. I would say. I mean, it's not the best, but it's not the worst either. He's put up some solid stats. They put him all over the field. He plays inline or flexed out to the sideline. Like you can have some flexibility with what kind of schemes you put him in offensively. So I think there are some things there that he can definitely add to an offense. He can, use his ability and athleticism to break some tackles downfield and get those yards after catch, as yards after contact as well. He projects as a future starting tight end who has, the frame and movement skills to be successful. Most prospects at this position, he has, like most prospects, I should say, has the ability to improve the technical aspects of his game, which I think he'll need to do a little bit further to be consistent. But, he has a lot to offer here. Now, he's the focal point of the Nittany Lions offense over the past season. And he did have that shoulder injury. So you got to always keep an eye on injuries. We said this on a couple of the other players that we had in previous streams where, injuries can be, shoulder injuries, especially for some receivers and tight ends can kind of, accumulate a little bit. So you got to be careful on that. But I don't think that's going to be too big of an issue here. 310 yards in 4 games with 23 catches on 37 targets. 260 pounds. He's a jumbo-sized target for the position. I think he could be a really solid player. So we'll see what he ends up landing as far as a team goes here in this year's draft. But number 1, Kyle Pitts.
Big gap here. Big gap between everyone else and number 1.
I was going to say, going through these, I was kind of like looking through even some of the players we didn't talk about. There's a lot of separation here. We mentioned this with the previous position. I can't remember who it was where there was a difference between the top 2. I think it was receivers. The difference between the top 2.
Top three, yeah.
And the rest of the pack. There's a massive Grand Canyon of the difference between who's here. And Kyle Pitts kind of epitomizes that here as the tight end position.
I mean, I think Kyle Pitts he's on our big board, which we haven't revealed yet, but he's our number 2 player on our big board. As a tight end, the highest pick tight end ever in draft history was actually Vernon Davis back in the day by the 49ers. He was picked 6th overall. A couple of years ago, TJ Hawkinson was taken 8th by the Lions. There's only been, since 97, there's been 4 players, including those 2, so 2 more players, that have been picked inside the top 10 as a tight end. This guy, I fully expect to, right now, if I had to project, he's going number 4 to Atlanta, which means he's going to be the first non-quarterback off the board. which is what we have him ranked as. He's behind Trevor Lawrence in our rankings.
That's impressive.
But he's right there. So I think right now, if I had to project, the first 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks. I think everyone knows those first 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks. And then I think at 4 is you could see a quarterback, or I think Kyle Pitts is the pick, and I would lean Kyle Pitts right now. Like, he to join that offense in Atlanta with Julio Jones if he can stay healthy. I'm drawing a blank on their other wide receiver out of Alabama who's really good. And Matt Ryan still has some game to him. So that offense is going to be really, really tough to guard as long as that offensive line hangs in there. But this guy has, like, when we talk about weaknesses, like, he has none. Like, that's why he is where he is. He does everything well. He's an elite athlete. He, is able to, as a pass catcher, do everything well. Judge the flight of the football, break on a ball, like his hips. So my player comp for him is Travis Kelce. He's got hips that can move. He can beat guys, whether it's hips by going up and just grabbing the ball out of the air. He's a really, really good inline blocker. Like, he's not even weak at blocking the ball. Give him as a pass catcher, but he's really, really solid at blocking in line and on the line. Not that you're going to ask a guy this talented to do that a lot, just like KC doesn't ask Kelce to block a ton. But he has the ability to do it, just like I think Kelce is a good blocker that they just don't ask to do it a lot because his strength, his even greater strengths are somewhere else. This guy's a huge catch radius. He will go up and get it against anybody that's following close in coverage. Just an elite playmaker, a chess piece that you don't find often. And instantly he becomes, in my mind, entering the league like a top 5 tight end. No doubt in my mind. And with the potential to be one of the greatest tight ends to ever play the game.
Jesus Santos, thank you for the follow. I really, really appreciate it. We love you. Thank you for joining us and joining the Action Lab, the Lab Rat crew. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in the lab from here on out. Thank you so much. Kyle Pitts, I think he's absolutely incredible of a player, man. Like, so as rare as this is, Pitts might be even rarer for the tight end position. Like, you don't see 245 pounders move the way he can. He's earned a 96.2 Pro Football Focus grade last year, shattering the single-season grade record for a college tight end. Now, on top of this, he's one of the most dominant, potentially, arguably, tight ends to ever play the college football game. He separates. He's flex. I mean, you talked about his hips. By the way, does your wife know how much you love men's hips? I don't know if she does.
It's only on the football field, but I'll talk to her about it because I dream of Kelsey's hips.
I'm telling you, we're gonna get you. Maybe a picture of Kelsey's hips at some point for Christmas, for your birthday, for something. At 6'6", he looks like a wide receiver running these routes. He's almost impossible to guard one-on-one, at least at the college level. When flexed out, his back shoulder passes that he's been able to catch, insane. He's improved every year as he's filled out his frame. Like, he's been unbelievable. So uses his length as a blocker. He is solid in just route running, top to bottom. There's not really much you can really knock on this kid. Vertical routes, he has sufficient speed to put stress on defenses. I just don't see too many flaws here. The fact that you have this guy as the first non-quarterback taken potentially in this draft, I mean, what does that say? Usually you have like the top offensive lineman in this, or a top edge rusher in the top like 5 or 6 picks. Usually you have dominant players like that usually slot in there. You don't really see too many, as you mentioned, tight ends go in and make a big difference, and especially go that high in the draft. So versatility makes him one of the ultimate mismatches that defensive coaches will have to account for no matter what you do. And you're going to have sleepless nights, I think, if you're a defensive coordinator for somebody who has to prepare for a guy like Kyle Pitts. I mean, he is one of the best tight ends. He'll be one of the best tight ends. I honestly look at him to be. We don't talk a lot about fantasy football. We're gonna probably do some fantasy football stuff. A lot. I've never been big on rookie tight ends or stuff like that. I'm not gonna lie. He's gonna be on one of my radars for one of my tight ends coming up this season. That's how good he could be. And I'm not a big tight end rookie guy. Like fantasy football, I try to stay away from those. Keep an eye on him. He could be a huge playmaker. Unbelievable athlete. So, yes. So that's what we got for you guys here. What do you guys think? Let us know in the chat whether or not, if you're still here hanging with us, let us know. It's been a little quiet in the chat since we've gotten past our rundown, but we still want to hear what you guys have to say. And if you have any thoughts on whether or not your team is going to be slotted in for some of these players, throw it in there so we could chat about it. Because, I mean, honestly, Kyle Pitts is going to slot no matter who drafts him. So they're going to be really, really happy with that. But some of these other guys may be, interesting fits. We'll have to talk about that. We'll have another round of this. We still have to cover some defensive linemen, offensive linemen. What else have we not covered yet? What do we need? Running backs?
We have not covered running backs, have not covered linebackers. I'm thinking, I haven't talked to you, so a surprise, but I think maybe a little bit of our own mock draft of the first round on the Wednesday show.
Absolutely, we can get that going. I would love to do that. Maybe we do, I pick, you pick, I pick, you pick, and we kind of go through that and kind of throw together what we think is going to happen here. Maybe include some trades, maybe have some fun things going on with that as well. Because who knows? The Broncos, our hometown Broncos here, have been rumored to be, making calls and conversations with some of those teams in the top 5 or 6 to try to maybe potentially move up. So we'll see if that's an option for not only the Broncos, but maybe a couple other teams. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this plays out. The Broncos definitely will be in the mix trying to make some moves. I love all the strategy. I love all the different mind games, because that's what comes into play here. You leak something to the media saying, oh, we're interested in so-and-so. And then all of a sudden that just sends teams, the media, everyone in different directions. And it's absolutely fascinating for me. It's playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. And that's where you see some of the best GMs and some of the best, teams who know how to play the game kind of separate themselves from the others in the pack. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait for it.
The trades are fun. I don't want to kill your hype machine there. I do not expect the Broncos to move up. I think they'll either pick at 9 or move back.
Okay.
Based off of some things I've heard, plus the fact that and what was put out there was, you look at it, you have a first-time GM, and it's really, really dangerous for a first-time to GM to move up in a draft and basically get rid of, another first-round pick, a couple more picks probably, to move up into that 4, 5, 6 spot that they need to move from 9 that they're at right now. Like, he's selling his mortgage on this one quarterback. I don't see him doing it. I think that if the right guy, I've heard between Lance and Fields, if they like one of those two, I have no idea which one, and they might pick that guy if he's there, but I don't know which one of those two it is. I've also heard at the same time, don't be surprised if Rashawn Slater, the offensive tackle from Northwestern's there, that he's the pick for Denver. I would actually call him a favorite, along with potentially like a corner like Surtain or Horn, or maybe a linebacker like Parsons from Penn State.
Which at that point, right, if you're thinking about it, if you're not completely off the Drew Lock train, but you're not on it either, if you're just thinking, man, he hasn't really had enough time at quarterback here to kind of get a good idea of what he can bring your team, and you're taking the best possible offensive lineman at that point, because again, you have quarterbacks coming off the list. You have maybe a tight end that we just discussed with Kyle Pitts here coming off the list. All of a sudden, there's 2 or 3 teams that, obviously don't. There's maybe a couple that don't need quarterbacks, so quarterbacks wouldn't make sense in those slots there. But with a quarterback being available and taking, you obviously have your cream of the crop at offensive line, defensive line, all these different other positions that if you can take the best player possible in the draft, whether or not, just regardless of position, you have some options there depending on what holes you are thinking you're going to need to fill. So offensive line has been a huge struggle for the Broncos over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, easily, if not longer. And it wouldn't be surprising for them to take an offensive line. And I wouldn't hate that either. So that would be you win the game in the trenches, right? Defensive, offense. I have a buddy that I talk to all the time, and he's like trench warfare, man. That's all it is, trench warfare. Get your offensive and defensive line set, and that's all you build out from there. And a lot of people have that mentality.
Yep. I mean, we saw in the Super Bowl, that was the difference in that game is the lines on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball for Tampa Bay just owned Kansas City. So outside of the obvious choice of the quarterback position being the most important, which it is in the NFL, outside of that, like your offensive and defensive lines need to be shored up. Those are really, really important and can make the difference for sure.
Man, I haven't been this hyped about the NFL draft, I don't think ever. I think this might be the most hyped I've ever been.
I think I've got you hyped for this.
You've got, but you got to get me hyped for the draft, and you also got to get me hyped for PGA golf.
Yeah,
and
that's a work in progress.
That's a work in progress. But you've got me on one. You're almost there on the other, and I can't wait for this draft. Like, I've done more research this year than I have ever for the NFL draft, and I am so excited to see how this unfolds. Like, usually I watch like the first pick, or I'll just wait for the Broncos pick and I'll turn it on real quick and I'll turn it off. Like, all right, cool, that's great. This year, I am excited for each pick for the first round at least, and even into the second, like halfway through the second, third round, because that's kind of where we've been slotting some of these players. And so I want to see where they end up landing. And so, man, it's going to be fun. We have our mock draft, I think, coming up. We can talk about that. And then we also have our draft special. If you're not sure of what we have going on there, just wait. We have a lot planned. We have some highlight reels. We have just our draft boards that we're going to be putting together, and scrollers and everything else. We're going to be doing this live for the first round of the draft, and it's going to be absolutely incredible for us. I can't wait. I'm going to have some fun, whether we have 1 viewer or 100 viewers. It's going to be great for us, and I can't wait. So, yeah, it's going to be one of the best drafts I think I've ever been a part of.
I'm super excited. I love talking about the draft and the craziness of that first round, and things can happen that just turn everything else upside down. So hopefully we'll get some of that, and I'll be drinking, I'll be eating, and I'll be enjoying.
We should get some snacks together. Maybe, like hit it all, have some, like a snack off. Maybe some.
I mean, I got to have, first of all, I feel like wings are like an automatic that day.
Ooh.
I got to have wings.
Ooh.
And I know you love your wings. So.
That's my favorite food in the world. I can't live without them.
Like last year when the pandemic was full-fledged, I remember we ordered some Buffalo Wild Wings that got delivered. I went to town on those, and I actually went on our back patio with the TV on our back patio. Humble brag there. Yeah, we got a TV out there. No. And that was more, I was outside because it was nice out, and also because I knew I was going to be loud, so I didn't want to wake up our kids. But I was out there and just had the time of my life watching that first round. Was watching it with my brothers and had a great time. So I love the draft. One of my biggest regrets in the world is not having someone, my buddy who was watching with me, video the moment the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes, because as I've mentioned on this show, I promise you, I was pumped up beyond belief for that pick. I wanted that pick so bad, and it happened, and I was psyched for it.
Yeah, no, I could only imagine. And you called that before everyone knew who Patrick Mahomes even was at that point. So who's going to be that person this year? Who's going to be the guy that everyone's getting hyped over? You always love those, like, you know, those shots of like the New York Giants or the Jets drafting a guy and all their fan base either booing or getting crazy. The Browns historically have had that as well. Like
it's in Cleveland this year, so that'll be interesting.
There you go.
We're back to a live draft. I know we're running over, but real quick, did you see the video of the Rams? The Rams are doing their own, like, they rented out this sweet Malibu house for all their staff to go, and that's where their like draft room is going to be, and it's got like this sweet pool. It's on the ocean. Like, it's the Sticks house, so they're not even going to Cleveland at all. They're just avoiding it.
We didn't even talk about, by the way, I know we're over, but I love overtime because we want to give everyone some content. But the Philadelphia Eagles, we were texting about this earlier on. Sorry, Mayday. I don't think Mayday's back with us. I think he had to go to bed. Maybe you're still here with us, Mayday. But the Philadelphia Eagles, the way they're evaluating talent is rock, paper, scissors. And there was a fun, Google this if you haven't seen it, but rock, paper, scissors, they were interviewing players and to discuss whether or not their competitive advantage and their drive competitively, they wanted to test it by doing Zoom rock, paper, scissors. And hey, if that's how you want to evaluate your talent, go for it. What's funny is what you texted back was, I would lose on purpose so I don't have to go to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yep, that's what I told you, and that's how I feel. Like if a GM was like, "Hey, we're gonna play some rock, paper, scissors here," because I want to see how competitive you are. Like, I think that was their idea, is to like grasp the competitive nature of this guy. I'd just be like, I'll be honest, like, I don't really want to play for you. So your team is in shambles right now, and this is a weird ask right now. Like, you're going to draft me because I'm competitive in rock, paper, scissors? Anyone could fake that for 2 seconds. That's not a hard thing to fake. So it's just a really, really stupid thing to play. And I would purposely do poorly. I'd act like I don't care. I'd do anything. I'd forget to even throw out any of them. I'd be like rock, paper, scissors, shoot, and I wouldn't make any of the symbols with my hand. So that would rule me out of being an Eagle, which means in the long run, I win.
Forget the vertical, forget the 40 at the combine. Add rock, paper, scissors to the combine and see how people react. And it's absolutely insane. I can't believe I saw that. But hey, Mayday, I hope you're still here. If you're not, watch the vlog so you can chime in on what your thoughts are about your team looking for players via rock, paper, scissors. But I digress. Thank you all, guys, for being with us, getting you through your week, getting you through your Wednesday. We're halfway through. Tomorrow's Thursday, and we're that much closer to Friday, Saturday, and our Sunday show, which we're going to be covering more and more for our NFL draft. We might be doing our mock draft at that point to make sure that you guys are all caught up on who's who coming up in this draft. And then we have our spotlight for our local teams as well. So I know we have a lot of local Colorado teams that we always like to touch on to see how they've been doing this week. By the way, I don't know how the Nuggets did tonight, but
they are in a 1-point battle. 9 minutes ago, they're down 89-88. Joker has 20. Porter has 17 on 8 of 12. Every starter actually is in double figures. Gordon's got 12. Barton's got 14. Campazzo's got 12. So starters have played well. Bench has only scored 13 points combined. So not that well, though. Shaq Harrison, our boy, 10 minutes.
Shaq Harrison.
5 points. 5 points.
Deb,
5 of the
back
13.
into chat. Go Nuggets. Shaq Harrison. She asked about Shaq Harrison earlier on.
Yep.
So, hey, there you go. There you asked how good Shaq Harrison was going to be. Hey, this is his coming out party.
The bench has only made 4 field goals tonight, and he's got 2 of them. And Millsap has the other 2. So bench has struggled. But starters are playing well, and this one's going to go down to the wire.
Well, thank you so much for everyone in chat. Deb, Phoenix, Mayday. As always, you guys are always pretty consistent, and we love the fact that we can talk to you guys each and every time. Jesus, thank you for popping in and giving us the follow here on this show. Manning Fresh from the previous show, Jen, Vic, everybody, Brad, everybody from Facebook chat. We love all you guys. We can't wait to see you guys back here on Sunday. So make sure you're hitting that follow button so you know when we go live. But Wednesdays, Sundays are our typical time. Hit us up on all our social networks, and we can't wait to see you then. Love you guys, and have a great night.